Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I think what got shared on the inner circle call before this, one of the guys is going through a hard time, and it was great to see all the other men there for him, supporting him, giving him advice and attention and support. And we care a lot about these guys, so it's tough sometimes. It's always tough to see one of the guys going through a hard time.
Yeah, you and I have been discussing it for almost an hour now. Before instead of recording a podcast, because this guy's an amazing man, and it is tough. We definitely, these guys are like, we call it a brotherhood because these guys are like brothers to us. And this guy in particular is just an amazing guy that's in a really tough spot.
Yes.
But I'm going to shift gears here, Tim, and for the listeners here. And this one's going to be about energy. So it's about changing states in some ways. But comes from one of our Aussie brothers, Nick. So Nick has a question here, and he sent this to me, and he says, what do you do when there is an energy mismatch in a marriage? I'm a guy who's been diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. I have boundless energy and operate at a very fast pace. My wife is often tired, most probably due to our stage of life, 2 young kids. He says, like myself, she needs a minimum of 10 hours of sleep at night and doesn't have the appetite for activity like he does. She prefers to rest. Our biggest issue is bedtime. She goes to bed before 8:30, often with the kids, whereas I'm not even tired by then. What recommendations do you guys have? I'll jump in here, Tim, because you and I talked about this briefly afterwards. But this is a situation similar to mine where I have 2 young kids under 5, although my son's turning 5 this month, which I'm excited about. And so is he, of course, loves his toys. But when you're looking at this and you have an energy mismatch in the relationship, the first question I would ask any guy is this a newer thing? And I'm going to guess it is to some degree because, he references probably due to the stage of life. So if that's the case, there's 2 situations that I would look at as a man to diagnose, right? What's the problem here, as we talk about in the Powerful Man internally, what's the constraint, right? So one is you have the age of your wife, right? There's going to be hormone fluctuations after birth, of course. And then there's also hormone fluctuations as women age. So that's one, right? She's probably too young for menopause, I'm going to guess. So let's just say it's just getting older. She's getting tired. Number 2, though, is lifestyle. And that's the one that I'm going to guess is going on here, right? Running 2 young kids, that's a lot of work. When my wife leaves and I have to watch both kids for a couple of days, man, I am tired. Like that is constant on. And so what I would look at here, if that is the case, if that is the constraint that's wearing your wife out, where she doesn't have the energy that she used to, now I'm going to look at how can I alleviate that constraint? Do I A, step in and help out more with the kids around the house or something along those lines? Or B, which is our favorite, is do we hire someone to come in and help if you don't have relatives or somebody that can do that? So for me, when I'm looking at this, Tim, for this gentleman, if I'm assuming it's a lifestyle thing, in other words, we've got 2 young kids, there's not going to be any hormonal issues that are going on. I'm going to ask my wife, like, how do you feel? What's going on for you? And I'm really going to get to the core of it for her. What's her perception of what's going on? Now, I'm not going to be accusatory and say, oh, geez, you have no energy. You're going to bed so early. I'm going to ask her how she's doing, right? Hey, what's one thing that you think would really help you recharge your batteries? And I'm going to take a positive, proactive approach here. And the reason I'm doing this is, one, I'm not going to get accusatory towards her. So her walls are going to come down. I'm going to use a version of the hidden motives technique, which this gentleman knows, and the guys that go through the activation method get to know really well. Right? I'm going to make her feel heard and understood. And I know after talking to my wife who coaches women, sometimes that's all that it takes is a woman, if she doesn't feel heard, desired, or seen, she can feel completely depleted. Her feminine energy is depleted. And so that could also be something that's setting this off. So I'm going to ask her, that's the step 1. I'm going to ask her, what's one thing that would help her recharge her batteries? It could be, hey, I just want to sleep in and read a book in bed, right? We had a guy who's in the inner circle as well, which is our advanced 1-year mastermind program Tim alluded to earlier. He asked his wife, he planned this amazing trip, Tim, for he and his wife to go away for a week. I mean, an amazing trip that anybody would want to go on. And his wife didn't want to go, which pissed him off, to be honest. And I said, did you ever ask her what she wanted to do? He said, no, well, we'll give it a try. And what she told him is, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be with you, but I want to wake up without an alarm, wake up without anybody pulling on me, wake up when I want to wake up, read a book lying in bed, maybe have breakfast in bed, and just recharge. Right. And this woman was a mother of 4 kids. So a very common thing here. So women can get easily depleted, especially when they don't feel seen and heard. And then so if they feel as if their role as mother is really taking a lot for them.
Mm, great points. So at first, I was struggling to understand the actual problem, right? Energy mismatch. Okay, cool. But what's the actual issue? Like, is it the fact that because of this quote unquote mismatch? Because in a lot of respects, there has to be an energy mismatch, right? Polarity, masculine, feminine, just the way I'm perceiving the question. And, if she's going to bed at the same time as the kids, I'm guessing that you guys then don't get a great deal of time to connect. Maybe there's not much intimacy. Maybe sex isn't really on the table. But this is what I'm getting at. Okay, what's the real issue? Because if you have boundless energy, right, and you're able to operate at a fast pace, then how can you or how do you get to direct that and channel it in a way whereby you can then lead your family and also your wife, maybe by being the CFO during the day, right? And taking some of those needs off your wife, maybe giving her a break, right? Maybe at the same time, if you can do all of that and do it in a fun way without getting tired, by default, it's going to pull your wife more into a feminine anyway. What else can you do to further put her into her feminine, right? I think Doug's suggestions as well, spot on around tiredness and have been seen and been heard and hormones and all that stuff, 100%. And I'm curious about how you can leverage your strength in order to create more polarity in the relationship. So you can, like I say, lead with a lighthouse and also with a wolf too, right? Wise, open, loving, fierce. Because in a lot of respects, this question, I keep looking down if you're watching on YouTube because I'm reading the question still or over and over. Even this reflection is wise, right? What do you do when there is an energy mismatch in a marriage? I mean, that's great. The fact that you're able to take a step back and look at it and be wise enough to recognize that, hey, there's something going on here. And then obviously be open-minded, right? You're able to then be open-minded to the possibilities of what you can do here to use this energy mismatch as a strength instead of a weakness, right? How might you even be able to celebrate this, right? How might you even be able to make this your thing, right? Between you guys within your relationship, your little quirk that you guys have. Are you able to come up with characters that you both play within the relationship, right? Like maybe you're the Tasmanian devil and she's, I don't know, what does the Tasmanian devil either conquer or something? But you get my point, right? It gives you guys an opportunity to just have a little bit of playfulness with this too, instead of this scenario being something that is maybe a negative. It could also be a positive, right? Because for every dark side, there's a light side to it as well. So yeah, I'm going to stop because I think there's so many things here that we've mentioned that if I was Nick, I would definitely be taking some notes, going back, looking at these, looking at how we can apply these, and applying them one by one and seeing what creates a shift.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key here, right? Is, first, Nick, and any guy listening to this, first have the conversation, right? Get to the bottom of what's really occurring for your wife. And you may already know the answer here, but I would recommend doing it again, right? Really getting to the bottom of what's occurring for her on her side of the street, so to speak, and go into this like an investigator, right? Like a journalist, and get excited. Like you really want to get into her world, and don't do it out of expectation or blame, right? That's the wrong energy to go in here. Go in it like an investigative reporter and try to find out what's occurring for her. Is she just exhausted at 8:30? Or is she on her bed in bed on her phone? Like what's going on? Because there's different things that can happen here. If she's just purely exhausted, right? We want to look at, possibly getting blood work done, nutrition panels. Like, what is she eating? What's her diet looking like? What's her recovery? Since you went through the activation method, or this gentleman did, right? He knows the importance of the alpha rise and shine. Does his wife get a portion of that? Does his wife get the alpha decompression? Right? Just like we teach you guys how important it is for you, and especially with someone like Nick who's activated now, he also gets to lead from the front and hopefully provide that for his wife. Right? My wife is an example. Every morning we get up, we greet each other, we hug, especially when we get up at the same time, we talk for a little bit. Then I go do my alpha rise and shine, and she goes and does hers before the kids get up. That's just how we've worked it out, right? So she super important. I can tell very much. I can tell every time when my wife's been interrupted. A kid wakes up early, phone call, something's happened where she has not been able to do part of her rise and shine, right? It's a different procedure that she goes through than I do, but it definitely throws my wife off. And also, I can tell you, Nick, that when my wife and I were going through something similar to this, not the same thing, but similar, what I discovered was my wife was actually suffering from postpartum depression. And she didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it, but I suspected it. In fact, Tim and I talked about it briefly when we were going through it. My wife won't mind me sharing this. But when I sat down and talked to her about it and did it from a loving place, like I'm suggesting, like a journalist, and I showed up for her, when my wife came out of the fog, so to speak, she just thanked me for being there for her. Right. And for, she said, putting up with her, being there for that time period. Right. And when I look back, it felt like when we were in it, man, it felt like the longest, worst dark period, when you're in it. But I look back, hindsight being 2020, it was such a blip on the radar of our marriage and our relationship and where I anticipate us going. Right. She was in a tough place. I'm going to guess your wife's in a tough place. She doesn't want to be the person who's in bed 10 hours, I'm guessing. She doesn't want to be the person that doesn't have energy. She doesn't want to be the wife that's not there with you doing all these great things. My guess is she was doing those with you before, and she'd love to be there with you again. And so she can start beating herself up about that, as my wife did. Right. And so the key here when I thought about this is, ooh, what if I take Doug out of this for a second here? And I look at my wife as just this loving human being who I love and care for. Kind of like Tim and I were talking about this gentleman in the inner circle earlier. Like we really feel for all the guys in the movement. Like we take it very personally, the things the guys are going through. What if I took that same approach with my wife? Okay, wow, here's a woman who is so exhausted that she goes to bed at 8:30 when the kids go to bed and stays in bed. Usually if people stay in bed, that's a sign of depression, by the way. Could be recharging her batteries, but it is a symptom or something that we look at for depression. Wow. So she can't she can't be with her husband, and her husband's an amazing activated man. Ooh, that means she knows that other women are noticing him too, and she can't keep up. What does that say about her? You start feeling for her, right? And so then I'm going to try to create a space for her to get her energy back, a space for her to reclaim the powerful woman that she is, so to speak. And how can she do that? So that's the approach I would take with this. And again, like I said, this could be, my wife had her whole hormone panels done, right? We've done it a few times with her and her blood work. We've done it with myself too, right? What's really going on? Our hormones affect so much of us and what we do and our gut biome. There's so much science regarding gut biome and hormone health. But even besides that, let's look at the simple things. What's occurring for her? And if you have this boundless energy, right, help her out. Nothing wrong with that. I throw my headphones in sometimes and I just go through the house and I pick up kids' toys or do things when they're out at swim lessons or whatever they might be doing. And I help my wife out, right? Because I know she deserves a break just like I deserve a break.
Well said. I yeah, that point there, as I reread it, the 10 hours sleep a night. Yeah, honestly, I missed that initially. And yeah, you're 100% right with everything you're saying there around depression and nutrition and everything. Um, yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think what you've said there just absolutely hits the nail on the head.
Awesome. Well, guys, Nick and everybody else, if you find yourself in a situation, guys, just remember that when you're in the thick of it, it's really tough to take yourself out of it. But remember, this is somebody that you love and you care for. And right now they are potentially hurting. So if that's being said, and now that especially this gentleman, you're activated, right? You guys hopefully are doing a lot better in your relationship and in your marriage. Now you can take a leadership role of leading and seeing how you can assist and help, not solving the problems, but how can you be there for her as her rock, as her lighthouse, and collect her berries. You know what that is. Collect her berries and find out what's occurring for her on her side of the street, and then take steps to change it. If you guys heard on a previous podcast, I sat down with my wife, and this is after a conversation in the UK coming from an Alpha Reset with Tim and driving me to the airport. But I talked to my wife about getting help in our house. And my wife's finally, she's like, sure, let's do it. But she never took action. So I put up the job posting. I fielded some of the basic interviews at first. And then I forwarded the good ones that I thought were good to my wife, who now we have help that's coming in. In fact, this woman's going to be here in just a little bit, and she's going to help out around the house. She helps out with the kids. It frees my wife up to do what she wants to do and actually be a human, because she had dreams and aspirations as well before we had kids, believe it or not. So it gives her the strength, it allows her to be in her femininity. And this woman's coming in on Sunday, and my wife and I have our date day on Sunday. We chose to do it a day instead of a date night, right? Because we actually want to go out and do fun stuff outdoors, which fills both of our cups and reconnects us. So I took the lead on that and had to push that forward as I'm pushing forward other things. But I did it from a leadership standpoint, not a I'm going to save you standpoint. Sometimes we all just need a little bit of a nudge. So awesome question, Nick. I hope that all works out. I want to hear back from you, my friend, and look forward to seeing you down under in person per our other conversation. Gentlemen, as we always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. If you got something from that, I would love to know what you got. Go over to the Facebook group. Let us know so we can keep getting back to you guys. And do what Nick did. Post your question, right? He did it in the private community, but also we have the public community. Post your questions. Just make sure you put #podcast. And that way Tim and I can see those and we can answer your questions and field them here for you. Gentlemen, until next time, we'll see you on the Powerful Man Show.